Well, we're coming close to 3 years since South Korea's free trade agreement with the U.S. went into effect.
Tell us more about the trade relationship between the two countries. Since then, our Shin Se-min joins us live in the studio. Thanks for joining us, Se-min.
Good afternoon, guys.
Yes.
Since the Korea and U.S. FTA went into effect, the trade volume between the two countries has surged tremendously, stimulating also the business ties between the two. Now, put into actual figures, the trade volume between the two countries was over $115 billion last year, up more than 11% from the previous year. Now, the growth is actually larger than Korea's trade volume with other countries, which only rose by 2 percentage points in the same period. Now, looking at the chart here, the Korean exports to the U.S. have been rising since the deal went into effect, from an export volume of some $58 billion to over $70 billion last year. Now, that's a lot of numbers to digest, I know, but all of this is to say that the business exchanges between the two countries perked up, buoyed by the economic recovery in the U.S. as well.
Right, very, very promising signs for the business between the two countries. But of course, what about the weakening yen? How is it affecting the Korean exports?
Right, Korea's main rival in the global economy, the Japanese market, had been shipping a lot of products with cheaper price tags. But even with those products entering the global economy, the market share of Korean products increased to 3% in the U.S. domestic markets. So it may not seem like a lot, but the experts say that the fact that it increased when other products were cheaper means that Korean products prove that their price competitiveness was actually getting stronger. And this is also partly due to a rise in the FTA utilization rate between Seoul and Washington, which was over 76%, up 7% from the average with other nations with FTA.
I may be wrong here, but I still hear many people saying that some of the items are still too pricey, for example, like oranges and cherries. So what's going on there?
Yes, you're right, but let me just put this out first. Korean consumers were able to enjoy some of the cheaper lobsters from America these days, but it's hard for consumers like you and I to feel the price drop in other products, such as, like you've mentioned, cherries, lemons, and oranges. It's quite a skewed equation if you look at it, especially for agricultural goods, as Korea has been importing larger amounts of such products since the deal went into effect. And experts say that it's one of the issues that still needs to be resolved.
The distribution channel for agricultural goods is to blame for pricey U.S. produce. The distribution system for such produce is much weaker than that for industrial products. So unless cherries or lemons are things that every Korean consumes on a daily basis, the import volume won't go up and prices will likely remain the same.
But aside from those tariff factors, the Korean agricultural sector, which was strongly against the FTA, hasn't been hit hard. Now, the worries that the influx of U.S. produce would dominate the Korean market simmered down as the FTA deals with Canada, Australia, and even EU created their own price competition upon entering the Korean market, making it more difficult for imported produce to have a monopoly.
Right, we're not going to have lobsters every meal, so I guess we're not feeling that impact yet. Well, people always hurry. We have the 빨리빨리 mentality here in Korea, but of course, it's only been close to 3 years. That's still more or less in the beginning stages since the FTA went into effect, Se-min. And I believe there are some things that can be worked out from here on. What's important is the future. What can we do to improve bilateral trade relations in the long run?
Right, in the long run, experts say that that I talked to today, specifically said that Korea-U.S. FTA setting is an example for trade agreements with other countries as well now, and Korean exporters should raise the quality of the product, as we have already strengthened our position in the U.S. domestic market with prices. And this is what the expert had to say about the progress so far.
With the slowly growing global economy, demand isn't likely to stretch like it has in the past. And the U.S. economy is slowly recovering, but it's picking up speed, and that's pretty much our only hope.
Now, he added that the FTA with the U.S. can be considered as training for the shifting global trade structure, especially with the introduction of the so-called Trans-Pacific Partnership Deal, or the TPP, a pending trade pact that includes the U.S. and 11 other countries.
Right, and South Korea, of course, is looking to getting into that TPP trade circle, so we will have to wait and see how all of this will work out and unfold. In the meantime, Se-min, thank you very much for coming in today and sharing your report with us.
My pleasure.